Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today is the 9th of February 2021. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So, very crazy last 24 hours, I think, right? I mean, I'm sure you've all seen this by now, but Tesla announced that they have bought $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin. Now, this was funny because over the past few weeks, Elon Musk has really been quite active in the crypto space, particularly with Doge, right? He was kind of like, I guess you could call it pumping Doge or like promoting Doge and kind of like talking about it. And at one point he had Bitcoin in his bio as well. I think when he put Bitcoin in his bio, it kind of the word Bitcoin or hashtag Bitcoin in his bio, the price spiked up a bit and then it came back down and people were like speculating like, did he buy BTC or did Tesla buy BTC or did one of his other companies buy it? And the rumor mill kept going, and I think obviously it's been confirmed now that Tesla did indeed buy $1.5 billion of BTC using their cash reserves. So they used, I think, about 7.7% of their total cash reserves to buy this BTC. And obviously, the crypto markets went wild after this. Bitcoin hit a new all-time high. ETH hit a new all-time high. So it's been a crazy last 24 hours, that's for sure. Now, I think outside of kind of just this direct purchase from Tesla, from an investment point of view, what this is and why I kind of said on Twitter that I think this is the most bullish thing to ever happen to crypto is because this one event, I believe, is what has just made crypto mainstream. Because Tesla is one of the biggest companies in the world, right? Elon Musk is the richest person in the world. And if he is like confident enough and he is signaling to the rest of the world that he is comfortable enough holding this asset on his company's, balance sheet, then, and he was able to convince like the board, the board of directors and like other kind of like people within his company, this was the right kind of move, then, why can't these other companies do it, right? Why can't these other public companies do it? Are they going to be left behind? Are you no longer kind of like on the right side of, I guess, like history by not buying, BTC and other crypto assets? So it basically legitimizes the entire space, right? Which I think is extremely powerful. I mean, nothing else could legitimize our space as much as the world's richest person putting BTC on their company's balance sheet. Short of like a large country adopting kind of like BTC or ETH or whatever as their nation's currency, this is probably the biggest thing that one of the biggest things we're gonna see happen in crypto forever, right? This is gonna be, in every kind of like history book on crypto and everything, it's gonna be basically like a whole section on it about how the great, I guess, crypto adoption kind of like got kicked off, right? I don't know what you would call it, but yeah, I mean, as you can kind of hear, I think, this has made me extremely bullish. And, I had some people ask me, I was like, okay, well, they bought BTC. What does this mean for kind of Ethereum and ETH? And I'm like, well, I mean, it's incredibly bullish for the entire space, not just Bitcoin. Because if I like to use this analogy. Remember, a lot of people, like when they get into kind of crypto as a new person, what's the first thing you do, right? You buy BTC. Right? You don't go and buy ETH straight away a lot of the time. You'll buy BTC first because that's what that's what you've heard of first. Even Vitalik, the founder of Ethereum, bought BTC first, right? Given that Ethereum didn't exist, but he went on to create Ethereum because he wanted to fix some problems with Bitcoin. But that's kind of besides the point here. The point is that they get into BTC first, and they're not just going to stay within the Bitcoin and BTC ecosystem. They're going to branch out. And I can guarantee you that we're going to see public companies putting ETH on their balance sheets sooner rather than later. I do not think it's going to take them another kind of like few years to get to that point. I think they're going to do it within the next 1 to 2 years, if I'm being honest. And it might even happen faster than that, right? I think, there was an interesting tweet on Twitter that I saw as well from Suzu that basically said signs of kind of like, I guess, euphoria and froth in the markets are indistinguishable from adoption. Because if you compare this current cycle to 2017, it is very, very, very different. In 2017, you did not have any of this stuff happening. There was no billionaires and billion-dollar companies, public companies putting BTC on their balance sheet. There was no DeFi. There was no, use case for Ethereum outside of ICOs, right? It was extremely frothy for all the wrong reasons. This time around, of course, the typical crypto stuff happens. Trash is pumping again, and we have like bull market mania going on. But this time around, we have something that's kind of lasting value on Ethereum and DeFi, and we have BTC basically being used as it, the Bitcoiners wanted it to be used, right? They want it to be used as like a reserve asset, basically digital gold, and kind of those narratives are playing out in real time right now. So if anyone kind of thinks this isn't bullish for the rest of the crypto ecosystem, I think it's just good to keep that in mind, in that this is just the front door that they're coming into this ecosystem with. This is legitimizing not only Bitcoin, but the entire space to the rest of the world. And I think we're not going to be hearing much from the mainstream media basically saying, Bitcoin is dead, Ethereum is dead, it's a fad, it's a toy, it's going to zero. I think the days of kind of those things being popular talking points are pretty much over at this point. Because you had the richest person in the world giving legitimacy to this thing, and it's very hard to kind of battle against that, and not just for like the media, but also for individuals that see this, right? It's a pretty great marketing vehicle too, because I've said before that I think most people have heard of Bitcoin, but I think they've heard of it, maybe in a negative light or in passing. It depends on the context of where they've kind of heard about it. So if they're hearing about it in the context of Elon Musk buying Bitcoin with Tesla's kind of balance sheet, Tesla's kind of cash reserve, sorry, that in itself is just like a massive positive signal. So yeah, I could go on for a very long time about why I think this is going to kind of basically catapult crypto to basically being mainstream, and basically being part of everyone's lives and things like that. It's still going to take longer than we would like because there's a lot of growing pains, right? The technology isn't exactly ready. When it comes to Ethereum and DeFi, we're still building out ETH2. We still have to build out the layer 2 ecosystems. We still have a lot of work to do on the user experience side of things, education especially. There's tons of work to do there, right? There's lots of work to do on the regulatory front. Don't let the fact that Elon Musk bought BTC kind of, fool you into thinking that regulators aren't still going to be coming for this technology. They are coming, and they're going to be coming pretty hard at some point soon. So we need to fight that battle. There's so many different battles that we still need to win that, I do think we're going to win them, obviously. But I just think, let's not get ahead of ourselves just yet, right? Even though I'm saying that I think this is the most bullish thing to ever happen, that's because I think we'll look back on this moment and kind of say to ourselves, okay, that's exactly when crypto went mainstream, right? But we still have a very kind of long road ahead of us, I think. But I guess I explained the other day why I'm so bullish on Ethereum and why I've never been more bullish, and this kind of just confirmed it for me. It cemented it for me that I just think that we're just getting started here. And, that's not to say that we can't have our classic crypto bear markets, right? Where things go down 90%, 95%, and then we have 2 years of crappy price movement. That can still happen. And to be honest, I expect that to still happen, given that, humans don't change, really. Human emotions don't change, and markets are driven by human emotion. So I still think we're going to be seeing that play out over the next few years. But at the same time, I do think that we're going to see things become, maybe more stable, right? And what I mean by that is that we're going to have these kind of frothy markets, but I've explained before how I think that now that we have DeFi, a lot of money is going to stay within the ecosystem, right? These institutions and these public companies that are buying BTC are just going to dump it at the first sign of weakness. They're going to hold it for a while. They have multi kind of decade investment horizons. Most of them at least, not all of them. Some of them will probably dump it or whatever, and some of them might just offload some during a kind of down market to kind of cap the risk there. But, these investments are not just made at the tip of a hat. It's just one day Elon woke up and thought, I'm going to buy over $1 billion worth of BTC. No, I think he had deep conversations with many people within the ecosystem and outside of the ecosystem, and kind of came to the conclusion that this was a good bet that Tesla should make. So yeah, I think I think that's a prudent decision, to be honest. I'd like for it to be ETH, but as I said, everyone's kind of first, or at least most people's kind of first kind of foray into crypto is Bitcoin and buying BTC, and that doesn't last long. You pretty much jump from BTC to something else really quickly. As an individual, you can probably jump to it within a couple of days, right? As a brand new individual to the space. Institutions and public companies will take longer. But as I've said before, the jump from non-crypto to crypto is much, much larger than the jump from BTC to ETH, right? So yeah, keep an eye on that. And I'm sure, like as I said, within the next 1 to 2 years, maybe even sooner than that, we're going to see this kind of stuff play out for ETH and Ethereum and DeFi as well. And it's going to be really, really great when we do see this play out, basically. And on that note, the other piece of big news that came out in the last 24 hours was the St. Louis Fed basically put out this research report on Ethereum and DeFi, which was an incredibly bullish research report. It was authored by a guy called Fabian Shah. I'm probably saying that wrong, but that's how I'm saying it. And basically published on this Federal Reserve Bank's website. It's quite a lengthy kind of piece here. Obviously, I'm not going to read it out for all of you. But what caught my eye about this, I kind of like skimmed through it already, is the fact that it is very, very good. It doesn't just kind of bring up buzzwords of blockchain and all this technology and try to like explain things just in a wrong way. It goes in depth, and it goes so in depth that they actually explain how AMM models work, right? With diagrams of like the classic kind of mechanisms that go into Uniswap and other AMMs like that, right? The XY equals K model that we've all probably heard of. And then it goes on, obviously, to describe smart contracts, to describe how DeFi can enable all these new financial primitives like flash loans and things like that. There's just so much in here. And the fact that it's well researched and it's not just your surface level kind of boring report is incredibly bullish, especially incredibly bullish that it's published on this Federal Reserve Bank's website. Because as I was saying about the Elon thing and the Tesla thing, this sort of stuff legitimizes our space more than anything that we can do, because this is coming from institutions that are viewed as like trusted, right? That are viewed as kind of the institutions that people can kind of look up to and kind of like trust that they know what they're talking about and things like that. And also, on top of this, it's funny because Fabian starts with this report by saying, and I quote, "The term decentralized finance refers to an alternative financial infrastructure built on top of the Ethereum blockchain." So two parts there, right? He calls it out as an alternative financial infrastructure. So that's exactly what we call it, right? We call it a parallel financial system or an alternative financial system that's going to potentially replace the traditional system. And then he says built on the Ethereum blockchain, right? Which I thought was very interesting, because usually when you see these kind of research reports, people for one reason or another like to just bucket DeFi into, bucket kind of Ethereum into all the other kind of protocols that are quote unquote doing DeFi, and then just like basically equate them, which is wrong in my eyes, because really none of the other protocols have much traction or any traction whatsoever with DeFi. It basically is all Ethereum. So I'm very happy that Fabian kind of called out Ethereum by name here, and continues to do that throughout the piece. I think there's 22 mentions of Ethereum. I think DAI is mentioned over 30 times as well. It's very heavy focused on the Ethereum DeFi apps. Well, of course, because that's where all the DeFi activity is happening. It has notes on scalability and all this sort of stuff. So definitely go read this piece. I highly recommend it. And yeah, I guess just on a higher level here, as I was saying before about this stuff legitimizing the space, I think not only does it legitimize the space, but it also educates people on this stuff that wouldn't read, I guess, maybe they won't read the Daily Gwei, right? They won't watch these YouTube videos. They're probably not even going to read Bankless or the Define or any of that sort of stuff, right? They're going to get their information from these entities that they're already familiar with. So we need more of this, I think, because this just reaches more people than we can, because it's coming from an entity that people are familiar with rather than someone brand new and someone who, I guess, like, quote unquote, shills this stuff for a living, right? So I think that's really important, and I think this is really bullish. So this might be something that you can share with people who ask you what is DeFi and what is Ethereum, and you don't have to share something coming from like people within the ecosystem. This is coming from a Federal Reserve Bank, which a lot of people especially in the US, will be like, oh, okay, if it's coming from them, then it must be legit, right? A lot of people think like that. That's just the way that things work. So yeah, definitely an article that you can kind of send to your friends and family whenever they ask about Ethereum and DeFi. So ETH's futures launch on CME had their first day of trading yesterday, and Arcane Research posted out some stats here. So basically, the first day of trading for CME's ETH futures ended with over $30 million of volume and $20 million in open interest. Now, this might seem low because we do billions of dollars of volume within, I guess, like the centralized exchanges on crypto already, right? And even on the decentralized exchanges. But, some of you may recall that the volume for BTC was incredibly low when it first launched their futures product as well. It took time to build it up. And now the CME BTC product, I think, is number one, or at least at the top, at least in the top three by volume for futures products. And there's no reason why ETH can't get there either. So yeah, good to see some really, really solid initial traction here, but I'm going to be monitoring this and see how fast it grows. I think it's going to go pretty fast, especially as we're in like this bull market now, because, I guess like the BTC futures launched at the tail end of the bull market last time, and the ETH futures are launching at basically what feels like the beginning of this bull market, or at least the, I guess, beginning to mid of this bull market. So it's going to be interesting to see how fast this grows. So the Index Co-op announced today that they have integrated Transak Finance, which is a platform for fiat on-ramps, so that you can now buy the DPI, the DeFi Pulse Index, directly with fiat. Now, I want to quickly disclose here that I am an advisor to Set Protocol, which is, or Set Labs, which is one of the companies working on Index Co-op, and was originally the ones who launched the Index Co-op with DeFi Pulse. So obviously had a bit of a bias here, but this was something that I kind of like was wanting to see for quite a while with, I guess, the DPI. Having a fiat on-ramp is incredibly important. Now, the DPI isn't actually on any centralized exchanges yet, so and that not from like lack of trying on the Index Co-op's part. They're trying very hard, but obviously getting on centralized exchanges is not an easy task. So, and that's the only place you can have a fiat on-ramp. You can't have that on, DeFi, right? Even if you have like USDC or DAI or stablecoin kind of purchases, which we do for DPI, that's not fiat. That's just kind of like, digital dollars or stablecoins or whatever, right? So going directly from fiat to DPI is a huge deal, I think. It means people can get DeFi kind of exposure directly from their bank account. And I think right now, UK and EU residents can kind of do this. So they can purchase up to 10,000 euros worth of, or pounds, sorry, worth of DPI per week. And Indian residents can also purchase up to 1 million rupee of DPI a week using Transak here. So obviously there's limits to this, right? But it's still a very good first step. And I hope to see more DeFi products integrate kind of fiat on-ramps because this is the only way you're going to get new people in, right? They have to come in through fiat. There's no way around that. So they're either going to go through centralized exchanges or they're going to go through one of these kind of, I guess, fiat on-ramp applications like Transak. So yeah, really great to see this from the Index Co-op today. So this is a bot that I've spoken about on the Refuel before that I've been monitoring for quite some time, the L2 Dex Wars bot. Now, you remember last week I had a look at this bot and I was explaining how Loopring was only doing $10 million of volume over the last 24 hours last week. Well, turns out today, they did $30 million, I guess, over the last 24 hours, which is a 3 times increase in not even a week, right? And I was saying last week how I believed that layer 2 decentralized exchange volume was going to explode and go and grow much faster than layer 1 did. Simply, I mean, for 2 main reasons. One, necessity, right? High gas fees pricing out users. Layer 2 is a hot thing. People are moving to Loopring's exchange. And not just Loopring, but these other ones as well, like Diversify, Nash, and Leverage, and all these sorts of kind of things, yeah. But then on top of that, the second major reason is that people are just more used to decentralized exchanges now. People are used to liquidity providing, right? People are used to trading on them. They know what to expect. So because they're more used to it, it's just way easier for them to kind of adopt Loopring's kind of layer 2 model here, or Diversify's layer 2 model, or whatever. So really, really great to see the growth just kind of explode. And honestly, I didn't expect it to happen this fast either. I thought we'd see maybe like 10 million, then 15 million, then 20 million, right? But we've gone 3 times in less than a week, which is incredibly promising, and I hope to see this continue. Maybe we can get to $100 million over the next few weeks of 24-hour volume on Loopring, and then some of the others can catch up as well. I would like to see more kind of distribution here between the others. Obviously, Loopring is kind of like, I guess, leading by a big margin here, but I think that's simply because I see everyone suggesting Loopring to kind of people, and they have a really, really great platform, a really great onboarding experience for people as well. So definitely, I talk about Loopring all the time on here, but I think simply I talk about it a lot because it is the best example we have today of layer 2 kind of technology for people to just go and try out, because it's obviously a hot topic and it's just very easy for me to recommend to people whenever they ask me about it. And on that note as well, I mean, Matthew Feinstein from Loopring put out this tweet that basically says, the Loopring decentralized exchange is doing more transactions than Cardano, Avalanche, and Polkadot. So it's doing 1.6 times more than Cardano, 2.4 times more than Avalanche, and 2.4 times more than Polkadot. And this is what I was explaining in yesterday's refuel about Ethereum competitors. You can go verify this for yourself. This is not me fighting. This is not me coming up with crap just to justify my kind of Ethereum bias, right? This is real. The transactions on these networks are essentially non-existent because there's just nothing to do on them. Yet maybe they do develop an ecosystem. I'm not saying they won't, but the thing, the kind of like fact of the matter is that Cardano doesn't have smart contracts yet, right? So it can't really do anything besides staking. Avalanche is extremely new. It's the same kind of thing. I'm pretty sure they're going to be integrating smart contracts soon, or they already have it. I'm not too sure. I haven't looked in too deeply. And Polkadot is a bit different because Polkadot itself is not a smart contract chain. It relies on parachains kind of talking to it to do smart contracts. So that the ecosystem's still developing. But, the fact that, I guess, these systems have been out longer than Loopring's Layer 2 exchange, I think all of them have, and Loopring's already kind of like way ahead of them, is testament to the fact that Ethereum has all the network effects. And it's just so much easier for people to onboard onto Loopring from Layer 1 Ethereum than it is for people to leave Layer 1 Ethereum and go to these ghost chains where nothing's happening, right? It's very hard to bootstrap these ecosystems. So I'm glad that Matt put out this tweet because I thought it was just very interesting. And I hadn't even done the comparison myself, but I went and verified this and I was like, wow, that's actually kind of crazy. Because I was doing some more research kind of today, about like the different Ethereum competitors, right? Because I know on yesterday's refuel, I spoke a lot about them, and I really just wanted to do deeper research into them to make sure I wasn't missing anything. I always like to kind of verify that, and it really is that they just don't have much activity happening on them at all. And I'm not saying it's going to be like that forever. But if Ethereum has like literally so much activity happening on it that, people are paying $20-25 million of gas fees a day, more than that, I think 30 million plus dollars worth of ETH in gas fees a day to use it. And then you have these other chains that are claiming to be, low fee transactions, super scalable, and literally no one's using them. That says something, right? And I don't understand how people can't see that. But, I think I'm preaching to the choir here. Everyone watching this is probably big fans of Ethereum. But we'll see what happens with these other chains. We'll see if Loopring keeps getting away from them, and we'll see if they catch up. Maybe they have things coming in the pipeline. Like I know Cardano has smart contracts coming. I mean, people on Twitter like to remind me of that every single day. But we'll see what happens. We'll see how strong Ethereum's network effects are here. All right, last thing is a really nice tweet here from fubuloubu, which I thought was quite cool. So he basically, and I'll quote out the tweet. He says, "I wanted to take a moment and thank the Ethereum community for investing in Vyperlang via Gitcoin grants. We took a long-term hold strategy of ETH a year ago, and we finally have enough runway for new full-time contributors to come on board over the next few months. Thank you." Now, for those who don't know, the Vyper programming language is an alternative smart contracting language to Solidity on Ethereum. So Solidity is the main smart contracting language that everyone kind of uses, but Vyper is an alternative here that's being developed by fubuloubu and his team, and basically saying that all the donations that they got through Gitcoin grants last year, they put into ETH. And obviously that ETH is appreciated, and now they have enough money to fund kind of full-time contributors, which is just amazing to me, right? I mean, this is what I guess Eric and I did with ETH Hub, and kind of did with Daily Gwei through Gitcoin grants, is that we kind of bought ETH with it, especially with ETH Hub, because ETH Hub we bought ETH much lower than it is today. We everything that we got from Gitcoin grants we put into ETH, and I think we were buying ETH at like $100 to $200 most of the time. And obviously that's appreciated a lot since then, and that's kind of helped us to sustain ourselves and sustain what we've been doing with kind of ETH Hub, what I've been doing with the Daily Gwei and stuff like that. And obviously we're not the only one who's done this. I know there's other people that do this as well with Gitcoin grants, and it's obviously risky because the price can go down, of course, but a lot of this was done during the bear market. And that's the kind of stuff you want to do, right? You want to make sure that you can kind of land grab what you can during a bear market, so when the bull market comes along, you get the kind of most benefit out of it. So yeah, I just thought this tweet was really good, and he's definitely not alone in kind of this feeling here. And then for those who kind of maybe developers listening in, definitely go check out Vyperlang. I've heard it's really great. I've heard that I think Yearn's using it because fubuloubu works for Yearn, or at least basically works with Yearn as one of the kind of like full-time kind of contributors there, but he's also working on Vyperlang too. So yeah, definitely go check it out if you're a developer here. And yeah, that's it for today's refuel, everyone. Thank you again for listening and watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, be sure to subscribe to the channel, give that video a thumbs up, join the Discord channel, subscribe to the Daily Gwei newsletter, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.